The turkey was perfect, golden brown, exactly how Robert would have made it during our 43 years of marriage. I'd followed his recipe precisely, the way I'd done everything for the past 3 years since his heart attack took him from me. At 68 years old, Thanksgiving without him still felt wrong. But having my family around the table helped fill the emptiness. "Mom, this is incredible," my daughter Vanessa said, her smile bright and warm. She was 45, polished and successful in her real estate career, wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. "You've outdone yourself. Thank you, sweetheart." I served the mashed potatoes, my gaze moving around the table. Vanessa's husband Derek, an insurance claims adjuster, was already reaching for seconds. My son-in-law had always been hungry, always wanting more. My brother-in-law Paul sat across from them, Robert's older brother, the one who Dee always resented that his younger brother had built Morrison Property Holdings into a $3 million empire while Paul struggled through various failed ventures. And then there was my granddaughter Sophie, 19 years old, home from college. She'd barely touched her food, just pushed cranberry sauce around her plate with her fork. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. My phone vibrated in my cardigan pocket. I ignored it, focusing on the blessing of having everyone together. But it buzzed again, insistent. "Excuse me," I murmured, pulling out my phone. "Unknown number. They're recording everything. Act normal." My blood turned to ice. Sophie. I looked up at my granddaughter. Her face was pale, her jaw tight. When our eyes met, she gave the tiniest shake of her head, then looked away. "Everything okay, Eleanor?" Vanessa asked, her voice honeyed with concern. I forced my brightest smile, the one I'd perfected through decades of business negotiations and difficult clients. "Just a message from the church group. Nothing urgent." I set the phone down carefully. "Derek, would you like more turkey?" "Absolutely. Eleanor, you're an amazing cook." He grinned at me, that easy charm he'd always had. "You know, we were just discussing earlier, those apartment buildings you manage must be getting harder to handle at your age, Derek," Vanessa said with a light laugh. "It's Thanksgiving." No business talk, but Paul leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "Actually, it's not a bad topic. Eleanor, don't you think it might be time to consider your options? Those properties require a lot of work, a lot of decisions." My hands remained steady as I passed the gravy boat. Inside, my mind raced, recording everything. Where? How long? Why? "The properties are manageable," I said evenly. "Morrison Property Holdings has excellent staff, and I'm not ready to retire from Robert's legacy." "Dad's legacy," Vanessa corrected gently. "But Mom, he's been gone 3 years. You don't have to carry that burden anymore. You could sell, travel, enjoy your retirement. Live in a nice assisted living community where you wouldn't have to worry about maintenance and bills." Assisted living at 60. When I still ran 5 properties, managed 12 employees, and had the sharpest mind in every business meeting I attended, "I like my house," I said simply, "and I like my work. Now, who wants pie?" The conversation shifted to safer topics: Sophie's engineering classes, Derek's latest insurance claim, Vanessa's recent real estate sales. But my phone felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. Every few minutes, Sophie would glance at me, fear written clearly across her young face. I made it through dessert, through coffee, through Vanessa insisting she'd help clean up while Derek and Paul watched football in my den, through Sophie saying she had a headache and would lie down in the guest room. Finally, blessedly, they all left. Vanessa hugged me at the door, holding on just a beat too long. "Mom, we worry about you. In this big house all alone. If you ever need anything, I know, dear, I'll call." The moment the door closed, I stood in my foyer and looked at my home with new eyes. This 4-bedroom colonial in Riverside Oaks had been my sanctuary for 35 years. Every corner held memories of Robert, of raising Vanessa, of building our life together. Where would someone hide a camera? I started with the obvious places. The smoke detector in the hallway came down first. My hands shook as I examined it, and there nestled inside the casing was a tiny lens. A camera barely larger than a button, its red recording light dim but visible. "Oh, Robert," I whispered, "what has our daughter become?" Systematically, I went through every room. Cameras in the air vents, one tucked into the decorative lamp on my nightstand, another hidden in the outlet cover near my bathroom mirror. One inside the frame of the family photo on my dresser, the one of Robert, Vanessa, and me at Vanessa's college graduation. They'd been watching me in my bedroom, in my bathroom, in every private moment of my life. By midnight, I'd found 14 cameras, 14 violations. I laid them out on my kitchen table, these tiny instruments of betrayal, and took photographs with my phone. Then, carefully, I put every single one back exactly where I'd found it. If they were watching me, I'd give them a show. But first, I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. My phone buzzed. "Sophie, Grandma, I'm so sorry." I only found out 2 weeks ago. I was using Mom's laptop and found the monitoring software. There are edited videos. They're planning to file for emergency guardianship next month. They have papers ready. Uncle Paul has been helping them. Please don't tell anyone, I told you. I'm scared. Emergency guardianship. For a woman who'd successfully run a multi-million-dollar property management company for 40 years. For a woman whose financial statements were flawless, whose properties were profitable, whose mind was as sharp as it had ever been. I texted back, "Thank you for warning me. You did the right thing. I'm going to handle this, but I need you to act completely normal around your mother. Can you do that?" "Yes. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. Your grandfather would be so proud of your courage." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at Robert's old desk in the study and made a list. Every suspicious visit over the past months, every time Vanessa had insisted on helping around the house, every time Derek had stopped by with his toolbox to fix something. 3 months ago, Vanessa spent an entire afternoon organizing my study while I was at a property inspection. 2 months ago, Derek came over to check my smoke detectors after a news story about house fires. 6 weeks ago, Paul visited to catch up and spent 20 minutes alone upstairs while I made coffee. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. At 6 a.m., I called my attorney. James Patterson had been Robert's lawyer for 25 years, then mine. He was 65, sharp as a razor, and absolutely ruthless when his clients were threatened. "Eleanor, it's Thanksgiving weekend. This must be urgent." "James, I need to see you first thing Monday morning. I'm being surveilled in my own home by my daughter, and I believe they're planning to have me declared incompetent." The silence on the other end lasted 3 heartbeats. "I'll clear my Monday schedule." "Eleanor, are you safe right now?" "I am, and I'm about to become much safer. I need referrals tech, forensics expert, private investigator who specializes in elder abuse, and possibly a criminal attorney. I'll have all of that ready for you Monday. In the meantime, don't let them know you've discovered anything. Can you do that?" "James, I negotiated with commercial developers for 4 decades. I can handle my daughter." Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. That morning, I performed for the cameras. I made coffee and seemed to forget where I'd put my favorite mug. I started to write a check for my electric bill, then appeared confused about the date. I wandered into the living room as if I'd forgotten why I'd gone there. Let them think they were winning. Let them collect their evidence. But in my car, driving to the grocery store where there were no cameras, I was Eleanor Morrison, the woman who'd turned her husband's 3-building portfolio into a 20-unit empire. The woman who'd negotiated million-dollar deals. The woman who'd never lost a business battle in her life. I wasn't about to start now. Monday morning, I sat in James Patterson's conference room with a team of professionals. James had delivered on every referral. "Mrs. Morrison," said Detective Lisa Chen from the Elder Abuse Unit. "Walk me through everything." I showed her Sophie's texts, described the 14 cameras and their locations, explained about the emergency guardianship papers Sophie had mentioned. "This is textbook elder abuse," Detective Chen said, her expression grim. "It's also illegal surveillance, conspiracy, fraud, and depending on their end goal, possibly attempted theft. With your permission, we'd like to leave those cameras in place. Let them keep recording, but we're going to install our own surveillance with proper warrants. We want to catch them in the act." Marcus Rivera, the tech forensics expert, was already typing on his laptop. "Mrs. Morrison, I need access to your home computer. If they installed cameras, they likely installed spyware to monitor your financial activity and communications. Whatever you need." Over the next 2 days, Marcus worked his magic. He found spyware that had been logging my every keystroke for 4 months. He discovered cloud storage accounts registered to Derek Thompson containing hundreds of hours of footage. And he found something else at its video files. "Look at this," Marcus said, showing me his screen. "This is original footage of you in your kitchen last Tuesday. You're looking for your reading glasses. 15 seconds later, you find them on top of your head and laugh." Normal behavior, he clicked to another file. "This is their edited version. They cut out you finding the glasses. They looped the footage of you searching. In their version, you look for 5 minutes, give up, and wander away confused. They've done this hundreds of times. Mrs. Morrison, they're building a comprehensive case that you're mentally incompetent." My hands clenched into fists. "Show me more." He did. Video after video, edited to make me look confused, forgetful, lost. Me searching for my car keys except they de-cut out the part where my phone rang and I set the keys down to answer. Me trying to remember someone's name except they de-cut out the part where I remembered it seconds later. Me looking at my medication bottles except they de-cut out the part where I correctly took my prescribed doses. In their edited reality, I was a woman who couldn't function. who needed someone to take over her affairs. I want copies of everything, I said, my voice ice cold. Original files, edited files, every piece of evidence that shows what they've done. The private investigator, James had recommended, a retired FBI agent named Thomas Wade, had been busy too. Mrs. Morrison, I ran background checks on everyone involved. Your daughter and son-in-law have significant financial problems. They took out a second mortgage last year. Derek's been making some questionable insurance claims that are under review. And Paul Morrison, your brother-in-law, has a history. What kind of history? Thomas pulled out a file. 10 years ago in Henderson County, he helped a client navigate guardianship proceedings for an elderly aunt. The aunt was declared incompetent. Her assets were liquidated and she died 8 months later in a nursing home. The nephew left the state shortly after, and Paul received a $20,000 consulting fee. There was an investigation, but nothing was ever proven. He's done this before. My voice was barely a whisper. It appears so. And Mrs. Morrison, I found conditional sale agreements in your daughter's files. They've already negotiated to sell Morrison property holdings to Westfield Commercial Enterprises for $3.8 million. The sale closes 30 days after they obtain legal authority over your affairs. They'd sold Robert's legacy, our legacy, before they even had the right to do so. What about Sophie? Is she safe? Your granddaughter is not involved in any of the planning? In fact, from the communications I've been able to access, they deliberately kept her in the dark. She found out by accident. James leaned forward. Eleanor, we have enough evidence to file criminal charges right now, but I want to suggest something else. Something that will ensure they can never claim you're incompetent. Never question your mental faculties. Never try this again. I'm listening in 3 weeks. You're scheduled to give the keynote address at the Regional Property Management Conference. 500 industry professionals will be in attendance, including many of your daughter's real estate colleagues and Derek's insurance contacts. I suggest we let Vanessa and Derek continue their surveillance. Let them think they're succeeding. And then, at the conference, in front of everyone who matters in their professional worlds, we expose exactly what they've been doing. Detective Chen smiled. I like it. Public exposure, criminal charges filed simultaneously, and complete professional destruction. We'll have officers ready to make arrests the moment you finish your presentation. They'll be expecting me to fail at that speech, I said slowly. They'll be watching, documenting, hoping I'll stumble. Exactly, James said. Which is why you're going to give the best speech of your career. And then you're going to show everyone exactly who Vanessa Thompson and Derek Thompson really are. Over the next 3 weeks, I lived a carefully choreographed double life. During the day, at home where the cameras watched, I played the role of a declining woman. I forgot appointments, misplaced things, seemed confused by simple tasks. I even staged a scene where I left the stove on, then acted flustered when I discovered it. But outside my house, I was Eleanor Morrison at full power. I met with my management team, reviewed financials, negotiated a new property acquisition. I worked with a speech coach to perfect my conference keynote. I memorized every fact, every figure, every piece of evidence we'd gathered. Sophie visited twice, playing her role perfectly. She acted concerned about me in front of her mother, but when we were alone in my garden where Detective Chen had assured me there were no cameras, she cried in my arms. I can't believe Mom would do this to you. Dad would be horrified. Your father loved you very much, Sophie, and he taught you right from wrong. That's why you found the courage to warn me. What's going to happen to them? The truth is going to come out. There will be consequences. But Sophie, I promise you will be okay. You did the right thing. You'll always have a home with me. Vanessa called frequently, her voice dripping with fake concern. Mom, I'm worried about you. You seemed confused when we talked yesterday. Are you sure you're taking your medications correctly? I'm fine, dear. Just getting older, I suppose. That's what worries me, Mom. Getting older means needing help. There's no shame in that. There was no shame in needing help, but there was deep, unforgivable shame in what my daughter was doing. The night before the conference, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, the one with a camera hidden in the outlet cover nearby, and looked at myself 68 years old. Gray hair cut in a practical bob. Lines earned from decades of hard work and genuine smiles. Eyes that had watched my husband die, had built a business, had raised a daughter who'd somehow learned to value money over integrity. Robert, I said softly to his memory, I hope I'm making you proud. I hope you'd understand why I'm doing this. I could almost hear his voice. Eleanor, you're the strongest woman I ever met. Show them what you're made of. The Regional Property Management Conference was held at the Grand Hotel's Convention Center. 500 property managers, real estate professionals, and industry leaders filled the ballroom. I stood backstage in my best suit navy blue. Perfectly tailored, and watched Vanessa and Derek take their seats in the third row. Paul sat beside them, his expression smug. They thought they were here to watch me fail publicly, to to document the final proof of my incompetence. Mrs. Morrison, the conference organizer, said, "You're on in 2 minutes. Are you ready?" I've never been more ready for anything in my life. I walked onto that stage to polite applause, positioned myself behind the podium, and looked out at the sea of faces. Many of them I knew, people I'd done business with for decades, people who respected Robert's legacy and the work I'd continued in his name. Good afternoon. I'm Eleanor Morrison, owner of Morrison Property Holdings. I was scheduled to give you a keynote about innovative property management strategies in changing markets. And I will, but first, I need to tell you a different story. A story about trust, betrayal, and what happens when family members decide their inheritance is worth more than their integrity. The room went silent. I saw Vanessa's face drain of color. Derek grabbed her hand. For the past 5 months, my daughter and son-in-law have been conducting illegal surveillance in my home. 14 hidden cameras placed in every room, including my bedroom and bathroom. They've been recording me without my knowledge or consent, editing that footage to make me appear mentally incompetent, and planning to file for emergency guardianship to gain control of my assets. Gasps rippled through the audience. Vanessa started to stand, but Paul pulled her back down. They've already negotiated to sell Morrison Property Holdings, my late husband's life's work, for $3.8 million. A sale conditional on them obtaining legal control over my affairs. Through guardianship based on fabricated evidence of incompetence. I clicked my remote and the large screens on either side of the stage lit up. Split-screen video. On the left, original footage of me working efficiently in my home office. On the right, their edited version showing me confused and lost. This is one example of hundreds. My daughter, who many of you know as a real estate professional, and my son-in-law, an insurance claims adjuster, spent months systematically creating false evidence to steal everything my husband and I built over 40 years. Another click, another split screen, then another. The audience watched in horror as the scope of the deception became clear. My brother-in-law, Paul Morrison, assisted in this conspiracy. He has a history of similar schemes. 10 years ago in Henderson County, he helped orchestrate a guardianship case that resulted in an elderly woman's assets being liquidated and her death 8 months later. He received $20,000 for his consulting services. Paul was on his feet now, moving toward the exit. He didn't make it. Police officers appeared in the aisles, blocking the doors. The evidence against my daughter's son-in-law and brother-in-law has been provided to law enforcement. Warrants have been issued, and as of this moment, they are being placed under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, illegal surveillance, and attempted theft. Detective Chen and 3 uniformed officers moved through the crowd. I watched from the stage as they read Vanessa her rights. My daughter, the little girl I'd rocked to sleep, taught to ride a bike, sent off to college with pride, was being handcuffed in front of her professional peers. She looked up at me, and for just a moment I saw something in her eyes, not remorse, not shame. Just cold calculation, wondering if there was still a way to spin this in her favor. There wasn't. "Now," I said, turning back to the stunned audience. "Let me tell you about innovative property management strategies." And I gave them 45 minutes of the most comprehensive, detailed, articulate presentation on market trends, technology integration, and strategic growth that conference had ever heard. Every fact was precise. Every figure was accurate. Every recommendation was backed by data and experience. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, standing in the hallway giving a statement to Detective Chen, I felt James's hand on my shoulder. "Eleanor, that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It was necessary. Robert always said that when someone tries to destroy you, you show them who you really are." I showed them. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. The evidence was overwhelming: hundreds of hours of surveillance footage, the edited videos, the spyware on my computer, the communications between Vanessa, Derek, and Paul detailing their plans, the conditional sale agreement, Paul's history in Henderson County. Vanessa received 6 years for conspiracy to commit elder abuse and fraud. Derek received 5 years for illegal surveillance and conspiracy. Paul, with his prior history, received 9 years and was ordered to pay restitution to the Henderson County victim's family. All 3 lost their professional licenses. Vanessa's real estate license was permanently revoked. Derek could never work in insurance again, and Paul's consulting business collapsed when his role in both cases became public knowledge. The conditional sale agreement was voided. Morrison Property Holdings remained mine, and under my management continued to thrive. 6 months after the trial, Sophie moved into my house. She'd transferred to a local university to finish her engineering degree, and every evening we had dinner together at the same table where ID received that warning text on Thanksgiving. "Grandma," she said one night, pushing her plate away, "do you ever wonder if you should have handled it differently, given them a chance to stop?" I thought about that for a long moment. "Sophie, your mother and Derek didn't make a mistake. They made a calculated months-long decision to violate my privacy, fabricate evidence, and steal everything your grandfather and I built. They were willing to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized. Paul had literally done this before, and a woman died. They weren't going to stop. They were going to destroy me. I know. I just... ... She's still my mom, and she made her choices. You made yours. You chose integrity over family loyalty. That's what your grandfather taught us. That some things matter more than blood, honesty, honor, doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Sophie nodded, tears in her eyes. I got my acceptance letter today. Master's program in structural engineering. Full scholarship. I pulled my granddaughter into a hug, pride swelling in my chest. Your grandfather would be so incredibly proud of you. I know I am. Later that night, I stood in my kitchen, camera-free now. All evidence removed after the Triland looked at the family photo I'd hung back on the wall. Robert, Vanessa, and me at her college graduation, all of us smiling. I'd raised that little girl, loved her, given her every advantage, and somehow she'd learned to value money over everything else. But I'd also influenced Sophie, taught her Robert's values, showed her what it meant to stand up for what's right, even when it cost everything. We did good, Robert, I whispered to the photo, not with Vanessa. We failed there somehow, but with Sophie, we got it right. My phone buzzed. A message from James. Board meeting next week to discuss the new property acquisition. Your expertise is needed. As always, you're irreplaceable, Eleanor, I smiled. At 68 years old, 3 years after losing my husband, I was still building, still growing, still proving that age was just a number, and competence wasn't something that faded with gray hair. Vanessa had tried to make me a victim. Instead, she'd reminded the entire industry exactly who Eleanor Morrison wasn't, always had been, a survivor, a fighter, and a woman who understood that when someone tries to take what you've earned, you show them exactly what you're made of. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Have you ever discovered that someone close to you was betraying your trust? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.